This is the new Hunter 350 and it's like no other Royal Enfield on sale today. Because in spirit, while those are all about heading up mountain passes or heading into forests or finding coastal roads or being on the highways that lead you there, this Hunter 350 is all about being at home here in the city. Which is why Royal Enfield have brought us to Bangkok, to one of the most trafficked cities in the world. And we are in the heart of it. So what is the Hunter 350? You should think of it as the most modern Royal Enfield that's meant to be city friendly, it's meant to be new rider friendly and wallet friendly. Basically, it's meant to be friendly. And looking at it, you do realize that it is a motorcycle that will not intimidate. It is a motorcycle that will invite all kinds of riders and all sexes of riders. And looking at it, it will remind you of other motorcycles. You could call it the Interceptor 350, basically the baby roadster, or the modern iteration of the classic. But the one that really hits home for me is that it does remind me of Triumph's Street Twin and has the potential of being an XSR 155 killer. Sweet, right? And it gets sweeter still when you look at the retro variant. This is the lower variant, which will be offered in India and a few other countries. It gets spoke wheels with slimmer tires, it has a simpler color scheme and simpler hardware too. For instance, the headlamp misses out on the pilot lamp. The switchgear doesn't have circular controls, the instrument cluster is smaller, although you do get a USB port here as well. Further back, you get a grab rail, which is a tubular unit, not a cast alloy one, and the tail lamp isn't LED, and the indicators are different too. But whether you choose retro or metro, you could glam it up with accessories like a fly screen, bar and mirrors, LED turn indicators and a tail tidy too. There are functional accessories like crash protection and luggage too. Now personally, I really do like the retro variant because of the spoke rims and the simpler color schemes. I don't mind the aesthetic misses, but the fact that it doesn't have a rear disc brake, which means it doesn't get dual channel ABS, can be a bit of a deal breaker.
But irrespective of which variant you choose,
so the Hunter 350 looks cool, it feels more accessible, and picking it right off the stand, you can feel that it is lighter. And that's because it is. One of the factors for that is that for the very first time in a very long time, we have a Royal Enfield with 17-inch wheels. Now these are smaller, lighter wheels, and Royal Enfield has stayed away from them in the past because it kind of changes the stance of the motorcycle. It kind of shrinks it down. And when you look at this, you realize that it does feel a bit smaller, especially if you have a 6-footer sitting on top of it. And in terms of dimensions, when you compare it with its platform siblings like the Meteor or the Classic, you do realize it is half a size smaller. But on the whole, I have to say that it does look quite authentically Royal Enfield. The chassis is shared, but it is differently used here. For instance, the lower portion of the split cradle frame is not in use here because in this case, the foot pegs are mounted further back by about 100 millimeters, so that missing piece saves weight. And the Hunter 350 isn't scared of using plastic. So the use of smaller wheels, the slightly altered frame, the use of plastics, all of this does help save weight to the tune of about 10 to 15 kilograms. But that's not much when you consider that this is still a 180 kilogram motorcycle, isn't it?
but weight has disappeared, and that's thanks to geometry. A difference of a few degrees and a few millimeters at the correct places can change the manners of a motorcycle. The Hunter 350's wheelbase is 20 millimeters smaller, its rake is a degree sharper, and don't forget the lighter wheels.
So what you get with that is a Royal Enfield like no other. For starters, your stance here on the motorcycle has just a hint of commitment to it. And when you do ride according to that, you realize that this is a motorcycle that loves to change direction. It's super happy to wriggle through traffic, so everyday living with it, it will be really easy. And along with that, when you want to ride hard, you realize you do have the widest section tires on offer on a Royal Enfield today, which will give you that added sense of confidence. But keep in mind, the overall nature of the motorcycle is just so lively that you could call it frisky. The Hunter is pretty spacious too, so taller riders will be comfortable here, and even with a tall pillion, you can travel comfortably. So this is the friendliest RE on sale today, and more importantly, this could be the most youthful and fun RE on sale today. Definitely very modern, right? Well, except for the engine, which is shared with the Classic and the Meteor. And there are no changes here, mechanically or basically in terms of the power or torque on offer. Slight change of tune to make it feel more peppy, and it definitely does feel a bit eager when you start off. But as you ride more and ride harder, you realize that this engine does prefer to chug. Its long stroke dimensions means it doesn't like being revved. And sure, you could hustle, but it just doesn't prove to be a match for what the chassis has to offer. And if you talk about practicality, for city use, the clutch should have been lighter. But if you ride in a relaxed or commuterish fashion, the torque from the engine will keep your city rides hassle-free. For highway use, a cruise speed of 90 is just about adequate. And lastly, don't you think RE could have made a smaller displacement engine with higher performance so that you would have an advantage when it came to fuel efficiency? And tourers would like to keep in mind that the Hunter's 150mm of ground clearance is lower than its platform siblings, and also that the seat can be a bit painful for longer rides. Thankfully, there is an accessory seat as an option. But there are some things you can't fix. For instance, in terms of features, there are no ride modes, connectivity features or modern touches, which TVS's Ronin does ace while offering phenomenal value. Also, the fit and finish can be a bit rough at places. So on one side, the Hunter 350 absolutely nails its brief of being accessible and friendly, and that's in the way it handles itself at low speeds for city use. But on the other side, it doesn't feel all that modern when we talk about its engine. That does feel, well, classically RE in that sense. And I think a smaller displacement engine with better performance and fuel efficiency would have better completed its brief. Along with that, it could have packed more by way of features and more premium equipment for a better value for money quotient. Which brings us to the price. And the price is wow! The Hunter 350 undercuts all of its competition while being on par with the TVS Ronin. Which means it's a very potent weapon that can hunt down new members for the Royal Enfield family.